This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Quite literally, after I just get done making a video talking about, hey, the Browns have really just did some internal moves. I wasn't expecting to do a bunch of big moves. Boom, smack dab in my face. Browns make not a huge move. I wouldn't characterize this as a huge move. This isn't like a player that we were talking about like Javon Hargraves, but they got Okoronkwo. He was ranked Pro Football Focus's 56 edge rusher in the free agent class, just above Yannick Ngakoue and some names that you know. So let's look who he's above, right? Yannick Ngakoue, Leonard Floyd, Brandon Graham, Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Frank Clark, Calvin Noy. A lot of names that you know that they say that this guy is better than. Now, it's Pro Football Focus. Take it with a grain of salt. This isn't the end all be all. But it is a interesting signing here. They projected him for 2 years, $6.5 million, which is around the Browns' range. This dude was drafted in 2018 out of Oklahoma. He's coming off of some of his better seasons in his career. So I think if you look at his career grades here, he was, so he started off a little rough. I mean, he's a late round pick. Well, not late, fifth round, late round pick. And then in 2021 in LA, he really came into his own, and it really fit well in Houston last year. So he's looking for a more permanent home. Again, you're taking a flyer on a younger guy who flashed, but he is a very promising young player. Now, Mary Kay has reported that this is a 3-year deal for him. So we will see what else is in store with the Cleveland Browns. This is not a giant move, but it is a move. It is most certainly a move. Now, let's talk about some of the frustration that I've seen out there. And I don't know if frustration is the right term, because maybe this is only discourse that you're only seeing on platforms like Twitter, where people just are kind of incentivized because anger seems to really do something for the algorithm over there. But it's interesting to me what the discourse has been, which is like this ideal that Andrew Berry has never been aggressive and that he just sits on his hands. And sometimes, man, I really wonder, do people just think that Sashi Brown is Andrew Berry? Because a lot of the criticisms of Andrew Berry are like criticisms of Sashi Brown, right? Where Sashi didn't do anything in free agency, and Sashi over-relied on analytics, and Sashi did this, and Sashi was cheap, and Sashi got rid of good players. But none of those criticisms work for Andrew Berry, because if you're talking about keeping good players, no GM in Cleveland Browns history has re-signed more Cleveland Browns than Andrew Berry. His retention rate has been not just above what other teams have had in the NFL, but above what the Cleveland Browns have had significantly, like doubling it. That's one thing. So that's a criticism of Sashi Brown that somehow people just drag on to Andrew Berry for whatever reason that I think doesn't get checked enough. Another criticism of Andrew Berry that is really a criticism of Sashi Brown, in my opinion, is this whole thing that he's not aggressive. We've never had a more aggressive GM than Andrew Berry. And you could say that John Dorsey was aggressive, and he was, but he wasn't as aggressive as Andrew Berry, because Andrew Berry traded 3 first-round picks to get Deshaun Watson. Andrew Berry went out and got Amari Cooper. Andrew Berry went out and signed guys. It didn't work out, like John Johnson, Austin Hooper, who were at the top of the market. That's aggression. Like, if your criticism of Andrew Berry is that he is not aggressive, I don't find that to be a very valid one that you can make. And I think that you can actually make the argument the opposite way, and it's more valid, even though I don't agree with it, which is Andrew Berry could be a little bit too aggressive. Again, criticisms of Andrew Berry feel like criticisms of Sashi Brown, despite these two going about their job in completely different ways. As much as I'm critical of the whole draft thing and trading back and all of that, yes, has Andrew Berry traded back? He traded back last year, but has he also traded up? Yes. Has he also just picked in the top 10 when he's had a top 10 pick? Yes. For whatever reason, we hear Andrew Berry and then we think of Sashi Brown, and maybe it's because Sashi Brown and Andrew Berry did work together, but Sashi Brown was in charge when Andrew Berry was working with Sashi. But we hear Andrew Berry and then we just go analytics, and don't think that he has a track record of his own that we can look back on. And he clearly has operated in a different manner than what you would assume analytics would operate in. He uses a mixture of both. Like, Andrew Berry is not a slave to analytics. He's not a slave to the other side of just football guy thinking, right? Like, we have had two parts of the extreme here in Cleveland. John Dorsey, one extreme, Mr. See It on Tape, Mr. Football Guy. And when you miss to see it on tape and you miss the football guy, you miss on a guy like Josh Allen. And you take a guy like Baker Mayfield. Why? Because Baker Mayfield was cold in college. It was on tape. We seen him be good in college. He was really good in college. Josh Allen was not. So you're not going to go with the projection. You're going to go with the dude that you think is cool when you miss the football guy, right? That's what John Dorsey was. On the other end of the spectrum, we had Sashi Brown, who was Mr. Hypothetical, right? Nothing excited Sashi Brown more than a hypothetical. 2017 is a great example. Why take Deshaun Watson when I can go move back into the second round, get some extra picks, and take Deshaun Kaiser? We don't have to live in one of the extremes or another, man. That's my main point, is that we don't have to live in one of these extremes. And I don't think Andrew Berry lives in one of those extremes. Is he aggressive when he has to be? Yes, he'll trade up. He will make a big move for a quarterback. But he's not so aggressive that he's doing these moves for positions that don't make sense, right? He's not so aggressive that he's trading a bunch of picks to sign an expensive linebacker like Roquan Smith or something like that. But he is aggressive enough to get Deshaun Watson. He's not so forward thinking that he's deciding, oh, I'm going to get rid of Myles Garrett to get extra picks. He keeps Myles Garrett, right? Like, he is in the middle of both of those ideologies. That's where you want to be. This is where you want to be. You don't want to be living in the extreme of one or the other, because your chances of success are much lower when you're only using one thought process to try to win football games or to try to construct a winning football team. So that is where they're at. Like, they're still kind of operating on their motto when they signed Okoronkwo. And let's look at some of his numbers. I mean, look, he is more of a projection player, but I don't think he's very expensive. So that's fine. If you're going to take a guy who's a projection, you just don't want to sign him to be expensive. You don't want to pay for production that has not happened yet, right? That's not what you're doing here. Now, he has had, in his last 2 years, like 7 sacks, 5 sacks last year. The ideal is that you put him next to Myles Garrett. He's going to get more one-on-ones, and he'll be able to win more often. He seems to be a decent run defender. Let me see what his run defense grades are on Pro Football Focus. He's a decent run defender. And he's a decent pass rusher, and I think they feel like he has a lot of potential. One of the things I talked to Jake about with the change of philosophy with Jim Schwartz in defense was he thought, and I agreed with him, that there was a strong chance that the Browns could go in a different direction with edge rusher than what they have. They've usually gone with these heavier guys who can go inside and out, or theoretically can go inside and out. Like, you look at Alex Wright, you look at Jordan Elliott, you look at who else did they bring in? Olivier Vernon wasn't them, but you look at Jadeveon Clowney. These are really big dudes who have shown inside out versatility that they like to use inside and out on the defense. And when I say inside out, I'm talking about 3 tech to 4I to 4T to 5. Right, so 3 to 5. They could play 3 to 5 on the line. And that means inside the guard, inside shoulder of the guard to center, outside shoulder guard tackle, And this is where they would line up in an outside shoulder tackle tight end or inside shoulder tackle tight end. Well, no, not inside shoulder tackle tight. That doesn't exist. So that is what they have been looking for. But I'm thinking they're probably going to want to get more stout inside, have non-rotational pieces there. Maybe you move around Miles, but like that's it. And then get lighter guys more in the mode of attack McKinley to be accent pieces to this edge rush. And this signing would definitely indicate that. This is a guy who is faster at a 4.7, but he's 253. So lighter for an edge rusher, 6'2". It seems like they're going smaller, a little bit more athletic there to complement Myles Garrett. And I think that's a good idea because when you have Myles Garrett, you're going to flush a lot of quarterbacks from the pocket. And what we have seen with bigger ends is the problem when we do that is that we don't have edge rushers who are athletic enough to run when quarterbacks decide to flush away from Myles Garrett. So then we just end up giving a bunch of big scrambles. Now the hope is when those guys flush from Myles, because Myles is the pressure king in the sack, well, in a pretty good sack getter too. You know what I mean? He's been pretty good at both, but he's really good at getting them pressures. Top of the league at that. When he gets those pressures or those hurries, they can convert into sacks for the team more often because now you have guys who are a little bit more athletic and make a tackle in space on the quarterback versus guys who need to be able to get there with their own pass rush moves to be able to be in position to make these plays. So I think that this is a move in a different direction. And it's a kind of a signal that they're building around Myles Garrett in a different way where it's not what big piece can you put next to Myles and then you wipe your hands of the situation. It's like philosophically, how can I build the defensive line around Myles Garrett? I think that's going to be a more successful strategy. I really do. If every piece on that defensive line is with Myles Garrett in mind, I think that's going to be a very successful strategy. And I think that's one that they haven't done so far. And that's how you're going to maximize the most out of him. So another signing by the Cleveland Browns. I'll try to keep up this week. I'll try to keep up. Be ready. It's going to be a bunch of videos. But that's it for this video. Y'all have a good one.